So are we deluding ourselves by deluding others, by going along with other people's delusions? It's a whole conversation, but the point is that we have to be aware.
Yeah,
This whole piece is bringing us to the awareness that things aren't always as
the
they
way
seem to
there.
be.
Parshat Matot Masa'ei. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are on the globe. And let's jump in here with again this week. We've been doing so many weeks of the Isbitcher. He's calling to us, and I like his materials.
So, Matos Masa'ei, very briefly, the topics, and one of the topics will be what the Ishbitzer is going to be delving into today. And in this week's Parsha, God Almighty instructs Moshe and the Jewish people to take revenge against this nation of Midian. Midian,
That's
that's the
right.
name of the kingdom which is going to come into play here. And very briefly, what happens is that Moses, chooses soldiers. He sends them against a much larger army,
Uh-huh.
and the Jewish people succeed in defeating the nation of Midian. However, the instruction was to kill everyone. The soldiers, they kept the women and the children alive. They brought back the uh, the uh, uh, the booty, as we call it, of war. The main thing we have to recall for context is that there was a battle against these people, the people of Midian, which the
Yeah.
Jewish people won the battle.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's and this is a story of conflict and you could say geopolitics of the Middle East of that time. And obviously, there's a spiritual level to the struggle because of the kind of the competition or the influence of Midian on the the burgeoning this new spiritual wisdom and faith and peoplehood that the people of Israel are manifesting. Um, and the Ishbitzer is going to take it to an internal place because obviously um, that's where all of this, as we know, is also teaches us about the internal struggles and dynamics of us as people, as spiritual people, as Jews. I'd like to show people how to access the source sheet, and the way you do that is you go to our website and you click on the website is Hebrew Circles. You click on Jewish resources. You go to Parsha videos, and so the source here is both the verses, the psukim in Parshat Matot that we're going to that the Ishbitzer is commenting on, and then there's his commentary in Hebrew and then in translation. And you're welcome to have that in front of you as you're listening to this lesson. Please, as usual, we love your vote of confidence. And what that means is click the subscribe button, like and share, and we appreciate that very much. Without further ado, let's jump into the text. So, so this is chapter 34 in Numbers, verse 1. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe le'emor, and God speaks to Moses, saying, verse 2, Nakom nikmat bnei Israel me'et hamidyanim, avenge the Israelite people on the Midianites. Achar tasef el amecha, then you shall be gathered to your kin, which I basically mean then you're going to pass away. And that's an interesting statement in and of itself, um, that, it's like, do this bidding and then, your job is done and you can move on to the next world.
Right.
Um,
As a matter of fact, the Medrash says on that pasuk, Reuven, that when they heard this, they didn't want to fight because they realized that at the
yeah,
conclusion of the battle would be the Patira, the death of their leader
of
Moses,
Moses.
so they
Yeah.
wanted to push it off.
The meaning that Ishbitzer is going to reveal for us is that the word Midian has also hidden meanings in it. So what does it mean to be struggling with these people? What does Midian mean? And let's jump right into that. So he starts by quoting the text, and then he continues. Midian more al dimion. The word Midian points to the concept of dimion. Dimion means imagination or illusion. We're not talking about creative imagination here. We're talking about false imaginations. You know, things that you make up in your own mind, right? And so the connection here is actually um, it's a linguistic. It's the words are a scramble. If you scramble the order of the letters in the name Midian, you get Dimion, basically. And obviously, in this is a very common Kabbalistic interpretive method where you connect the meanings of words that when you scramble the letters and you find other words and none of it is accidental. This is here to teach us something. So he says, "Ki Moshe haya nikra chokhmat kol Israel," and he continues, as since um, Moses, is called the wisdom of all of Israel. Moshe Mivuah with Parshat Tetzaveh, and he speaks about that in Parshat Tetzaveh in Exodus, where he's talking about Moses being like the oil of wisdom. And Ve'amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. So now knowing that Moses is considered the wisdom of Israel, and I mean actually let's make that a little more give that a little more kind of color here. What does it mean that Moses is the wisdom of Israel? Moses is the giver of the wisdom of Israel, and that simply means the Torah. I mean, on a very simple level, Moses is the source. He's channeling the deep wisdom of Torah to Israel, and that's why Moshe is considered the great prophet, the great rabbi, and the great leader, right? So um, he's he is that critical and the great liberator, you could say, etc., and the great servant of God. And also, Moshe is also known to be the most humble person at that. So, Moses is very, very important. Um, so so we continue. Malakadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe. Now, God says, the Holy One, blessed be, says to Moses, כאשר יסיר דמיון מלב ישראל, when דמיון, imagination or illusion, is removed from the hearts of Israel, אז לא יצטרכו בני ישראל להשתמש בחוכמה. לא צריכים להשתמש בחוכמה. They won't need to use chokmah, and but they will know Hashem. This is a spiritual reference. They will know, they will intimately know God through uh, and God's will through their own wisdom. So I think what he's pointing to here is that they will not need external wisdom. In other words, they will not need external wisdom that comes through Moses. כי אף בלי דעת יכוונו את רצון אדוני. And even without knowing wisdom that comes from outside, they will be able to attune themselves to God's will.
Right. So over here, the, we have to step back for a moment and discuss this Inyan of Dimyenes, Dimyan, imagination, illusion, as you stated. Now, as we know, that everything in the created world has positive and negative
Hmm.
going on. So too with this idea of Dimyan, Kayach HaDimyan. Now, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov goes very deep into this. A lot of his Torahs are based on this idea.
Hmm.
And as a matter of fact, he went as far as to say that he says, everything we want to do that's not good, we call it the Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer
Yeah,
Hara.
Yetzer Hara is the evil inclination. So
The
this is
inclination to
when,
do
yeah,
that which is not correct,
right.
that is not aligned with the divine
Hmm.
will.
Hmm.
Rabbi Nachman says we should come. He says he wants to give a new name to the Yetzer Hara. He wants to call it Dimyenes,
Hmm.
imagination. Because it's but on the other hand, as we'll see, as the Ishbitzer is alluding to, Dimyenes can also. There's a great power of good and positivity to be found in the kayach, in the ability to imagine.
Sure.
So much so that it can transcend conventional wisdom, so to
Knowledge.
speak,
Hmm. Yep.
knowledge and wisdom, which is what he's ultimately going to get to. But first, we have to understand the pitfalls
Yep.
of imagination, which is why he wants to remove it, have it removed, the negative aspect of Dimyones. Rabbi Nachman says that imagination is similar to the skin.
Hmm.
The skin. Now, the skin without bones, without flesh, without without the kishkis
Hmm. Yep.
is formless
Yep.
and nebulous and
The
can't be
spine.
controlled.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
So imagination by itself is just like a skin.
That's right.
What you stuff into that skin, is going to get back tied back into the chachma. What we control, how we control our thinking processes,
Right.
how we develop ourselves intellectually, the chachma and the
Right.
bina and the das, that will
Right.
lead us to fill up the skin so that what we imagine
Yep.
can be beautiful and great. He concludes that Torah over there, Rabbi Nachman, by saying that's why the tefillin have to be made of kosher animal skin. When
Hmm.
we wrap ourselves and
Right.
write on the parchment,
Right.
the message of the tefillin is that our skin has to be bound to
Right.
God and bound at another. So the bottom line is
Right.
that if the imagination is trained
Right.
in the
Yep.
proper path, then it can lead
Yep.
to beautiful things. If it's not trained, it can lead to mental disorder,
That's right.
which
That's
is
right.
what we
And and
have
and
today.
and to falsehood and to yeah.
All kinds of
No.
lunacy.
Yeah. So this is a very um, it's a topic that has a lot of subtlety in it.
Yeah.
Because how do you know, which side of imagination you're on? Are you on the illusion side, or are you in the kind of creative, sort of like spiritual growth enhancing side, right? So, and I think I think that's why the Ishbitzer is going there. So, but by the way, Reb Nachman also has a story of, the two, I think, the king and the minister, where there's epidemic in the kingdom where everybody's becoming mentally ill, and they say, how will we know, if we become mentally ill, how can we remind ourselves that we're actually okay? So they put a note. They decide to come up with this scheme that each is going to put a note on his forehead saying, "I'm sane," right? So this way they'll remind themselves. They're forcing themselves to remain sane while everybody else in the kingdom is becoming insane. And what happens if you have two sane people in a kingdom that's all where everybody is insane? So who's sane and who's not insane? It's
Right,
like,
right.
yeah. So I think Reb Nachman is really illustrating here the mind-boggling kind of concept of knowing and wisdom and how the relativity of it and how basically it can all be an illusion. Um, but I think what I want to clarify and clarify for myself and for everybody else is what is Ishbitzer really saying here about the connection between um, avenging the Midianites, or in other words, removing falsehood from one's heart to Moses, then he can die peacefully, right? Do this one thing and then you can go. And what he's saying here at the end is once you do that, you don't need the Moses anymore, right? This is what he's saying. He's saying, uh, Kasher Yasir Dimion Milev Israel, when one removes illusion from from the mind, lev would be heart, mind, right? So consciousness. Then the people of Israel will not need uh, wisdom from an outside source, from a Moses, but they will have their own wisdom. They will have acquired their own wisdom. So he's talking about a time not only where illusion is being removed, in other words, that people can't see the truth, right? This is the difference between seeing truth at a very high, deep level instead of seeing the fantasy of your mind, and and to the point where you don't need to be taught anymore. So we don't need to receive Torah anymore because now Torah is embedded within us. Spirituality is embedded within us, and the seeing of truth comes from within us. Ki af bli dat yichavnu Ratzon Hashem. Because even without the external knowledge, people will be able to tune right into the divine stream, right, and which is ultimate reality. So I think that's even it takes it a step further from not only being the tricky edge of illusion and fantasy to the ability to be independent of external sources, and I think that's where it gets interesting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. What you just said. It reminded me where it all comes together. We have the story where Joseph was down in Egypt and he was being seduced by Potiphar's wife. And it's interesting. Now he was a tremendous righteous person. They kept the Torah before the Torah was given. But when he had to draw the inner strength to not succumb to a seduction, he
Hmm.
didn't say to himself, "Oh, it's a big affair, it's a big sin. It says, thou
Yeah,
shalt not this and thou shalt not that." What
yeah,
happened? He imagined when she was approaching him, he imagined that he was seeing his father's image, his
yeah,
father's face, and
yeah,
that
yeah.
stopped him. He
Right,
used
right,
his, he used
right.
his koyach hadimion
Yeah,
because it was so, like you said, it became the Torah was so one with him that he was using
yeah,
all his inner imagination
right.
to which it came to his aid at this, and that's really it kicked in.
Apropos, I remember kind of messing around with that when I was 18 and I was a newly minted soldier, and I was put on night guard, to on my own in a position around the camp, and I was very afraid. I was very tired, and I was very afraid of falling asleep. It's actually more common than not that guards just fall asleep because you're alone it's dark, and there's nothing to do. You can't make sounds, you know. You can't whistle to yourself, you know, because you disclose your location. So you really, it's very challenging. In some ways, it's a spiritual, it's a meditative kind of challenge, you know. And I
Right.
remember totally intuitively, I decided that to pass the time and not fall asleep, I would imagine sitting at home with my family, you know, with my parents, with my brothers, you know. So I'd close my eyes and I'd visualize sitting with them and talking with them. So I brought my parents in as company, my family
Mm.
as company, and every now and then so I'd close my eyes to do that, but I kept myself active in that pretend, right? And then I would open my eyes and, you know, and I just make sure that I wouldn't let my eyes close and fall asleep. I would close my eyes and keep myself busy in that kind of intentional way.
Mm.
So, and that was complete illusion, right? You know,
Right.
but but it was purposeful. It was, you know, it wasn't. I wasn't believing it. I was managing myself with it. You know, so I think
Right.
that's what you're saying. Like yeah, like Yosef did that. You know, he actively brought in a mental picture to manage himself inside lehavdil. I mean, I'm you know,
Yeah. No.
I'm
No. 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 That's it.
little toe Joseph.
Right. And the point of it is that this is transcending chachma. This is
Uh-huh.
transcending chachma bin das, intellect.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we need the intellect to draw down into the emotions to form who we are. But there
Right.
comes a point. This might be the point that the Ishbitzers make, where we have to leave off. I mean, we have the stored away what we
Yeah.
need, but now it has to be internalized all the way through the system to fill up the
Right.
skin, so to speak,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that every fiber of our being, our very being becomes like a a Torah centered, a Torah focused
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
individual
Yeah.
person. So that because he wasn't able to call, there comes a stress in stressful times. We go back to that part of the brain, flight or fight, whatever they say,
Right.
and but we have that still. So when it comes down to it, what do we get? What can we rely on? It seems that we go our go-to is, no matter how many books we've read or how many teachers
Yeah.
we've had, our go-to is, you know, but that's what comes up to mind first. The Baal
Yeah.
Shem Tov said famously, "Where our mind is where we are."
I mean, he's specifically talking about uh, imagination as an enemy, right? So he's focusing on the danger of that, and maybe he's talking about transforming it, Dimyon,
Yeah,
from the dangerous element to the positive element. Um, but I think I mean, what tickles me here is that once once you don't have once you're able to remove nakom nikmat, to avenge, it's very strong words, I mean, the instruction there was to wipe everybody out, right? So, you know, wiping everybody out doesn't seem like, there's a lot of chesed in there, but when you're talking about illusion, you want all illusion gone, right? There's no, you don't want to save the children and the women of illusion. On the contrary, uh, you want to. I mean, that was the whole problem with Midian is that the Midianite women were seducing the Israeli men as a way to infiltrate and to kind of shake up the system, this new system that was coming online, right? With of a faith in of a seeing of a bigger reality of the divine reality, right? And they were coming in and kind of trying to seduce people away from that into the fantasy of the pleasures of the moment and the whatever they were about. So no wonder it gives a whole new meaning to everybody needs to be wiped out. Not that I don't like the thought of that as a practical matter. I'm a soft-hearted guy, and I'd like to be as merciful as possible wherever is possible. But sometimes it's got to be surgery, and everything has to be. All cancer cells have to be taken out, and this is what he's talking about. There's a level of dimion, of illusion, that um, no mercy, because it's like nothing's going to be left. If you want to be an independent, wise, plugged into God, kind of really fulfilling everything that, being in the image of God that you're created, the dimion, the illusion is really your enemy. It's got to be like removed. It's very powerful. Um,
Yeah.
strong words on a. So
Yep.
that's that's what
That's
we
what we
got
got.
here.
That's what we got.
Yeah,
Just to conclude, the Rabbi Nachman says that uh, the world wants to fool you. That's the whole point. The world is here to try to get over on you, to try to fool
yeah,
you. It's an illusion. Rabbi Nachman warns, don't be fooled. Don't lose
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Don't be fooled. So are we deluding ourselves by deluding others, by going along with other people's delusions? It's a whole conversation, but the point is that we have to be aware.
yeah.
This whole piece is bringing us to the awareness that things aren't always as
The
they
way
seem to
they're,
be,
as they seem. Yeah,
as they're presented.
yeah. And apropos, it's. I was just listening to a lecture by an Israeli rabbi here, who was talking about how there's in the world, and this is talking to especially to Israeli spiritual seekers, and there's a lot of us, both Israelis and Jews. I mean, you look at um, a lot of systems and organizations that offer spiritual training or spiritual information, um, and I'm not casting a judgment on any one system or another, but in that world, that culture, that sometimes you can say the market of spiritual resources, I think this is how this Ishbitzer here is very real. For me, in the context of this, is that a lot of what you're being sold, like self-improvement or systems of meditation, and I'm not knocking anything specific down, but a lot of it is really filled with illusion element. Obviously, the spiritual world is light, and we talk about that, and oh makif opening me. I mean, in Kabbalah we talk about that. It's real, but there's a way that it can be engaged with, um, that is aspirational and really illusionary. One can think that, oh, I'm high on the hog. I'm now practicing this or that, and is it really taking you to the place where you will, in the end, be able to tune into God's will independently? I think with that we'll let that be. This is a good exploration, and thank you everybody for being with us here today. Again, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 9 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast of the U.S. or any other time wherever you are on the globe. Shalom for now.
Yimra